Hello and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and their personal dreams. Today, I'm delighted that Cy Wilkinson has joined us in the studio. Cy is the CEO of UnitBurwelco, a group of 3 UK-based engineering businesses and 1 business in India. Prior to taking on the leadership role at UnitBurwelco, Cy started his career as an apprentice toolmaker and progressed through various roles as manufacturing manager, business unit manager, operations director, and MD at 2 previous organisations, with the majority of his career spent in the first-tier automotive industry. Cy's style is always on delivering leadership for the business with a clear focus on transformation, professionalizing efficiency, lean and improved financial performance. Cy has an MBA in engineering management and is married with 1 son. Cy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invite, Andrew.
Yeah, it's good to see you today. And I'm sure the audiences want to get to know you before we actually get into the questions. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and your current focus.
Yeah, well, you've given me a good intro there, so thanks for that. So yeah, basically I lead a manufacturing engineering business in the UK with 3 divisions, plus a division in India, various agents around the world. So I've been in manufacturing engineering since I left school and started as an apprentice and progressed through various roles to MD and CEO of this business where I am today. I live in the Midlands, married with 1 son. Focus at the moment is really about transforming the business we are working in at the moment. Been with the business 5 years, coming up to 5 years as CEO, and been through some challenging times and years recently with one thing and another, starting with COVID and then the war in Ukraine and then more recent events, all impacting the business in different ways. So yeah, been a challenging few years. We're still in the transformation phase with lots of good things going on and lots of opportunities to grow. And hoping that 2024 is going to be a much better year for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And what I'm looking forward to hearing later is about how you've had to adapt your leadership style to cope with those challenges as you go through the transformation. But before we do that, and this happens a lot with the leaders I speak with, so it's very normal. But what you've chosen to speak about is obviously who you are in a business sense. So again, just tell us a little bit more when you're not working. How do you sort of switch off? How do you relax? What kind of things do you do in your spare time?
Well, when I'm not working, got a family, wife and son, so spending time with them, friends, socialising. And I suppose to switch off, I go to the gym most mornings. So I spend an hour and 30 minutes in the gym, which is always good to clear the mind, really.
Well, absolutely. It does clear the mind, doesn't it, in that sense? And it's good if you can get into that kind of discipline, isn't it? So, yeah, great. And what's important about this for our audience is, what is it that actually shaped us as leaders from our earlier experiences? So again, can you take us back into earlier in life and what were those experiences that shaped your leadership style in your early career?
I suppose if I think back to, I was very much younger, spent a lot of time with grandparents. Grandfather had a really good work ethic. He'd actually lost his right arm in an industrial accident, but still carry on working and carrying on doing everything he could around the house and on the car without usually getting anyone else to help him. So had a really good sort of background in resilience and work ethic, which I think shaped me in my early career in terms of having a good work ethic, which I still maintain now, and being resilient and carrying on through tough times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting about your grandparents from that sense. So in terms of that upbringing, what else did it sort of give you in terms of that early characteristics around leadership, as well as the resilience and the hard work ethic?
I suppose the way it impacted me, I suppose I was brought up to, we could do everything ourselves. And in reality, as you get a bit more mature in your leadership style, you find actually that there are people out there that are experts in certain fields, certain disciplines that can do the job better than what I can. So it's much better to have a really good team around you that are experts in what they do, and a leader that's good at what he does or she does.
Yeah. And when did you first notice? Can you remember when back in your career it hit you to say, well, even though I had this great work ethic and been very resourceful, I probably do need to let go a little bit? Can you remember when that was in your career?
Yeah, actually, a couple of roles ago, I was ops director, and then got promoted to managing director. And at that point, I for a short period of time, I thought I could do. In order to save the business the expense of recruiting another ops director, I thought I would do both roles for a certain amount of time. Actually, I did for probably about 6 months, then realised actually to fulfil my new role as MD, I needed to get somebody else in that could do the ops role. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and what's very interesting, it's very normal again what you said there. Was that something that you actually worked out yourself, or was it feedback as well from people around you that you listened to that actually, listen, Cy, you may need to actually just think about this differently?
No, actually, I did figure it out myself, because I just thought, I need to focus on other things. And, trying to do two roles was pretty much, it was done for 6 months, but it wasn't the best. So you need to realise that, you need to have a good team around you. So I figured it out myself and decided I need to focus on the new role rather than trying to keep a hand in on the old role.
Absolutely. And then what did you notice as you transitioned into that MD and let go of the operations because somebody else was managing it? How did you maintain your, I guess, neutrality around that? Because now somebody else was doing the job. It wasn't you anymore.
Yeah, close contact, a lot of communication, spending time together, and regular updates on what things are going on, because always interested in how the operational side of the business is performing and achieving what it needs to achieve. But as long as I've got someone capable in the role, then and that's a good communicator as well, ensuring we're both up to speed on what's going on, if there are any issues, what we do to deal with them, or what other support's needed. So a lot around communication and just working together really to make sure that the objectives are met.
Yeah, what I notice in a lot of MDs that progress through engineering and operations is that sometimes, again, they need some support, or they can work it out themselves about creating this space around them, because they're always very good at getting stuff done. That's why they've been very successful. So there's hard work ethic, resilience, we can get through this. But then they find, as you've had to do with all the challenges, about the stakeholder engagement, not just the direct reports, but people around you. So how did you go about creating the space to make sure you could spend time in those relationships outside of your direct reports?
Yeah, I think, again, it's about having a good team around you, people that you can trust, and that are going to do a good job, do the best they can do, and shout up of things, need additional attention within the business. So that's a key element, is having the right team around you, good people, get good results.
Yeah. And talk to us a little bit about the challenges that you face. You talked about COVID, you talked about obviously Ukraine and the transformation that's going on now. So just talk to us a little bit about what challenges you face and how you've had to adapt as a leadership team to cope with those.
Yeah, I suppose going out of 2019, which was the first year in the business, we were sort of positioned to grow. We'd sort of restructured the team, got some more people around us, additional resource focusing on sales and growth. So going into 2020, we were well positioned for that. And then, of course, COVID hit in March 2020, which sort of put the brakes on a lot of things we were intending to do in 2020. we were able as a business to adapt quickly to working from home because we just upgraded our IT infrastructure, and so where we needed to, we quickly started working from home. Although because some of the business was working on critical infrastructure, we carried on working in a lot of the business, albeit with lots of additional safety measures and restrictions in place. I suppose the main thing for us was the communication and the way we ran the business in terms of going on to Teams or video platforms, whatever it might have been. We quickly did that, but obviously that does change the dynamic of working with a team and getting things done quickly. In some cases, where around the table, face to face is still an advantage in some cases, and not so much in others. Where reduced travel and things like that is a good advantage, but sometimes you need to be sat across the table from somebody. So that affected the business in 2020, and not only the way we operated, but the performance of the business because of restricted or reduced turnover in some areas because the work wasn't able to be completed. Then going into 21, the war in Ukraine started. Again, that affecting the supply chains, extending the supply chain, which were already under pressure from COVID. Extended supply chain, increased costs in materials, resource, energy, all the things that's impacted most people probably around the world, and certainly in this country. So challenging couple of years. 2022 started to be a bit better. Then there's been more challenges as we got into 2023. So I think we always have to adapt with business, and the people in it have certainly shown resilience over the past few years. But all through that time, although the performance of the business has been impacted, we've still continued to transform the way we operate, the internal aspects of the business. We incorporated a new business in 2021 in India. We've got agents all around the world, so we've continued trying to transform the business. Although we've had some headwinds that have perhaps made it slower than what we wanted.
Yeah, okay. And it's interesting to hear you speak because you're using the word resilience a lot, and that comes obviously from your own background, but also how the team has had to be during these challenges. So it's interesting to know, in an engineering type environment, how do you approach mental health, well-being for your employees in this kind of challenging environment?
Interestingly enough, we've started doing monthly mental health and well-being days where it's a sort of a internal drop-in room where people can go in and chat with various members of staff if they've got any issues they want to chat through. There's also information, leaflets and booklets available for the team. We send out internal monthly sort of training and development videos to the whole business. And some of those have included mental health and well-being. And also now we've started sending a monthly email around the same subject to the whole business. So we are taking it seriously. And actually there's a new or newish British standard on mental health, which earlier this morning we were talking about implementing that as a bolt-on to our occupational health certification that we already hold, ISO 45001. So we're taking it very seriously. There's always more we can do, and we're trying to do more all the time, both on those lines and other standards where we can use them to improve how we operate and how we are as a business.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've noticed a lot more sort of online presence now in terms of enabling anybody really to show that vulnerability and ask a question that might help them to cope with some mental health issues. So I think there's an app out there now called Jack, which stands for Just Ask a Question, which is an online app that people can go on to and just ask a question about something that's worrying them or something they've read about. Or so, what do you think's been the key to people feeling that they can be more vulnerable? You provided the support, but it doesn't mean that people are going to use it. What do you think's been the key for that?
I think generally throughout, like you said, on social media, television, it's more acceptable now for people to talk about their mental health or issues, worries, stresses they're feeling, and mental health and well-being in general is more accepted. That it's not seen as a weakness like it perhaps was once a number of years back. Everybody deals with things in a different way, but being able to talk about them is a good thing in the workplace and anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience that can actually see this rather than just hear it, they'll be able to see that we're both more mature in our years, which means obviously wise and experienced. But what is it, Cy, for you that as you look ahead for the next sort of 3 or 5 years, how do you think you might need to adapt your leadership style further? Bear in mind the environment you're in, the workforce that obviously you're bringing forward, and the growth expectations. What do you think's there for you in terms of what you need to work on still as a leader?
I think it's a little bit like we've just sort of touched on about as a business grows, it's more about creating more space to work on the things that senior leadership always should be working on, rather than working on things that perhaps people get dragged into that they shouldn't need to. So it's about creating the space, ensuring, prioritising and working on the things that should be worked on, and ensuring you've got a good team around you to make sure they work on what they should be working on. As it's a growing business, creating more space is even more important because there's so much more going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about what you're saying there is that proactivity from a leader to be able to create the space. Sometimes there's a reaction where, the people around saying, well, what are they doing? They're actually in the office. They're not actually got any meetings. What are they actually doing? And it's really interesting. I think when leaders do create that space, it sets the tone. It starts to role model a little bit, and then others can learn from that. But also, I think we've talked about in the past, we can have this reactive nature when we're triggered by certain things that maybe bring negative thoughts. So it might be a fear, it might be some kind of frustration, it might be sometimes anger. I feel that sometimes with certain relationships. So how do you make sure that you keep those negative thoughts, sometimes they call them saboteurs, at bay, so you maintain this neutral or positive outlook to be able to make decisions that are important for the business?
I think that is difficult, and sometimes, like you say, you can get dragged into things. You can people lose their temper, but I think it comes with being in a role for a number of years. Also being a bit more mature, as you said, not flying off the handle at everything that happens. But I think from my leadership style, it's more about dealing with issues. If something comes up that does make you angry or frustrated, the key point is how we're going to deal with it. What needs to be done to make it better or put it right.
Yeah. And in terms of the things that still you get impatient about, what are those 1 or 2 things you still get impatient about these days?
Perhaps when things don't get done that I'm expecting to get done, and especially in a timely manner. I suppose that's the same for anybody that's leading any type of business or organisation or anything else. If it's usually about around those sort of things.
I'm sure that people that know you best will definitely relate to that. Good. So there's going to be lots of people in the audience out there that, again, are resonating with your story about, where you came from, and obviously that passion that you've got for growing and the resilience that you've shown both as an individual, a team, and as an organization. So what advice would you offer to leaders out there who can relate to the story? How can they channel some of those earlier experiences into sustainable leadership over time?
I think, obviously, your background and the things that have happened to you impact everybody in different ways, but it's perhaps easy to say but not so easy to do, is trying to use all your previous experiences and things that have happened as a positive and use them in a positive way for your leadership style. I have mentioned resilience a lot of times because I do believe the business I'm in and a lot of other businesses have shown great resilience over the last few years, and the people in it have had to as well. but that could come back from early childhood or earlier years with somebody where they've perhaps been through difficult times, but that's shaped them into who they are today. So that's just a small example, but there's loads of things that could have happened to anybody, and always try and keep it positive and use that to motivate yourself to be a better leader and improve yourself and improve what you're doing.
Absolutely. And who's been your role model over the years in terms of the leaders that have been around you, or indeed not necessarily around you, but that you've aspired to be like?
Oh, I've had many good leaders in the past. One I still, who was my boss back in early 2000s, who I still meet up regularly with now, nearly 25 years later, a guy called John Greaves. He was, really focused, driven, aggressive in getting things done, and I learnt a lot from him, and I still do every time we chat or meet up for a bite to eat or a coffee. So yeah, there's loads, but he's the one I I could name in that sense.
Yeah, super. And again, it's always good to know about what the future holds in store for you personally. So when you think about the future, who or what are you going to be in service of in terms of what you're about as a leader and what it is that you're trying to do, and how can people collaborate or get in contact with you if they're interested in joining you in that?
Well, contactable through LinkedIn. That's probably where most people in business are these days, easily contactable there. In terms of 3 to 5 years for the business we're in, continue the transformation. Got huge growth opportunities in India and other regions around the world, which will come to fruition over the next few months and certainly into 2024. So that's going to keep us all very busy over the next 3 to 5 years. There's such huge opportunities for us. We've got all the building blocks in place, and it's starting to come to fruition now.
Yeah, good. And then personally, what's the dream for you? What's your own personal dream?
Personal dream is to continue, with a happy family life, good social life, enjoying life as well as working and being successful in my career. And, I still don't feel successful in my career yet. Still got a long way to go. I think just carry on, more of the same, continue to try and improve. And I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, audio books, things like that. So always trying to develop myself, meeting people like yourself. I've got a business coach. I do, things, numerous things to try and improve and develop myself, as well as improve the business and everything else I'm involved in.
Excellent. And when I hear that, I always ask the question, so what's the one book you would recommend that either you're reading at the moment or read recently, and what's the podcast or audio book you would listen to?
The one book I would recommend, which is on my shelf there, is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I actually bought the book probably about 5 years before I actually read it, and then wondered why didn't I read that a lot sooner, because it's one of the best business books I think out there.
Absolutely. And any podcast out there that you listen to, audiobooks?
I've got numerous audiobooks, and I probably listen to them, the same ones regularly. I first started off listening to Tony Robbins years ago, people like Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, the ones that, most people that are into that sort of thing, personal development, self-development, would have listened to. So anything that takes my fancy really on audiobooks. But usually I don't particularly listen to anything or read anything that's fiction. It's always around development or business or something like that.
Yeah, super. And what I have enjoyed today, Cy, about the experience that you're talking about is, a lot of leaders actually do lots of reading and self-development type reading and learning, but then it's about how they employ it. And it's about creating the space. It's about reflection. It's about understanding how you can apply that learning and asking for support. And I think we get to a certain stage in our lives where we're more ready and willing to do that which is what you've been talking about today. So I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with the audience. I know that many of them will have been inspired to reflect on their own leadership style, not only how they lead themselves, but how they lead others, which is even more important. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Andrew. Enjoyed talking to you. It's been good. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. I hope everyone out there enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can find out more information about conscious leadership and self-coaching by just typing in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious. Goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.